It's good day, brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? Troy Millsy, my hometown commander. Back for another episode of Millsy Brews, show where I brewed my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. And as always, the deck list will be down in the description for y'all below. Today we are continuing to rock through some OTJ content. I know that some leaks and some spoilers and all the things are coming out from Modern Horizons 3. Everybody's already looking forward. We will get to that when we get to that. But there's a few more commanders from OTJ I want to talk about. Then we're going to have a week or two of some random brews leading up to it, but we are still rocking along. Today we're talking about Kambal, Profiteering Mayor. An Orzhov Human Advisor, 2/4. It says whenever one or more tokens ETB under your opponent's control, for each of them, create a tap token that's a copy of it, and this ability triggers only once each turn. And then whenever one or more tokens ETB under our control, each opponent loses a life and we gain a life. I think Kambal's really interesting for a lot of reasons. One, I mean, if it was just the bottom ability, I think it would feel more like Teysa, right, than anything else. You know, it'd be more in line of what her cards have always done. But what I think is interesting here is the top ability, giving us copies of tokens that we make for our opponents, because there's actually a lot of effects that do that. And what I thought was fun about Kambal was it actually took an idea for a deck that I kind of already had, one or two of them, and slammed them into this one, which I think makes sense. We could talk a little bit about that there. And then the bottom ability, well, we probably are going to want to make tokens for ourselves anyway, especially in this color combination, this idea. So we're going to talk about some ways we're going to try to make tokens for us, and then a little bit of Aristocrats. At the end of the day, I think we're going to try to end the game with the Aristocrat style effects if possible, but I think there's enough here for us that we may be able to drain our opponents out pretty well with Kambal's second ability, as long as we can keep Kambal up and protect him. Let's start with some ways we're going to make some tokens for our opponents. There's a couple of creatures that do this. We have something like Combat Calligrapher, which whenever a player attacks one or more opponents, that attacking player creates a 2/1 tapped Inkling creature token with flying that's attacking that opponent, and then those Inklings can attack us, which is interesting. Of course, we have to keep the Calligrapher out to keep that there, but again, this means that every turn if somebody's attacking, they're getting a 2/1, we're getting a 2/1, and getting that to go off, as long as they're attacking one of our opponents. Hunted Bone Brute and Hunted Horror both do something very similar. When they ETB, our opponent of our choice makes two of a particular token, and then of course we're going to get 2 copies of that. Both of these are really cheap creatures, meaning we're getting them and 2 copies of things that, you know, and the copies of the things we're giving to our opponents. And again, we don't probably mind giving them to our opponents because we're getting copies and we're getting that trigger for the life loss and the life gain. Well, the card that I had really been thinking about making a deck for a long time that I think fits so well in Kambal is Shadric Silverquill. This is a card that at the beginning of each combat you get to do some things, and the one there is making potentially giving your opponents Inklings, because you kind of have to depending on what you want to do for these certain abilities. But here I think it's an upside because, well, we want to give them the Inkling because then we get the Inkling back. Slaughter Specialist seems interesting. When it comes in, each opponent makes a human, we would get that human, and then whenever a creature dies, the Specialist gets bigger. And then we're going to start into where I think this deck can really excel on making tokens is when we use these removal spells that give our token to our opponents as a consolation for what we're doing. Now we profit off of them because we get the token as well. Reduce to memory, exiling your target non-land permanent, and they make a spirit. Angelic Ascension, exiling your creature planeswalker, and they're making an angel. Bovine Intervention, destroy target vector creature. Fateful Absence, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Generous Gift, target permanent. Get Lost, target creature, enchantment, or planeswalker. And Stroke of Midnight, non-land permanent. What I like about these is the removal spells we want anyway. We want to be getting rid of our opponent's things, but they're getting a token, we're getting the tokens, and we're dealing damage in the process, and we're kind of benefiting from it instead of it being a downside for us. But let's talk about how we're going to make tokens for us. Adeline's a card I've always loved, and the wider we go, the better Adeline gets. Baron Bertram seems kind of cool. Whenever one or more tokens ETB under our control, we make a Vampire Rogue, and then we can sack another creature or artifact to draw a card, get ourselves going through our deck. Charismatic Conqueror is basically a copy of an effect like Blind Obedience, but our opponent gets the choice. They can either tap the thing that comes in or give us a 1/1. And again, with Kambal out, it's going to trigger every time that happens, which is really, really beneficial. Gisa, we have a lot of ways we're committing crimes in the deck, and so we're going to be getting those zombies and being able to really take advantage of that. Illustrious Wanderglyph is a house in itself, making a 1/1 gnome every turn. And as soon as we have 10 or more permanents, those become 3/3 gnomes. So this is going to trigger a Kambal every turn. Same thing with something like Lotho. Whenever a player casts their second spell, we lose a life and create a treasure. Again, we're gonna gain the life back with Kambal out because we made a token. And again, now we're profiting on everybody's turn. Tesa Orzhov Scion. Whenever a black creature we control dies, you make a spirit, and we can sack 3 white spirits to exile a creature. Tesa Opulent Oligarch, giving us clues for each opponent who lost life during our turn, which as long as we're making tokens on our turn is always going to happen with Kambal. And then whenever we sack a clue, we make a spirit. Again, just being able to cash in those draws for more things. Hail of Fountain's a really fun card because it does a couple things. It can untap a creature, tap creature we control to make a 1/1, or if we have enough creatures, can win us the game. I still have yet to get that bottom part to work, but I think the incremental little bit of a token every time is beneficial for us. Felidar Retreat can either give us a 2/2 cat or get our whole board a little bit wider for the turn and give them vigilance. March of the Canonized is a really good effect to try to get a bunch of tokens, and then if our devotion gets up to 7 or greater, we get a black and white Vampire Demon flying token every turn at the beginning of our upkeep, which is pretty great. And then Rabble Rousing can continue to just have us go wider and wider, getting more and more tokens where the amount is the number of creatures that are attacking. Again, replacing our 1/1s, getting them in for damage, and just making sure that we're keeping the pressure on our opponents. Now, there's a lot of Aristocrat style of things you can play in the deck, and there is a bunch in the deck. These are just ones that I wanted to point out. Mirkwood Bats is probably our favorite, because anytime we create a token, each opponent loses a life, but this includes sacrificing them as well. Nightier's Nightblade says whenever a token we control leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses a life and we gain a life. Again, the good part about the leaving the battlefield is, well, if we attack with a 1/1 and they jump block it, well, we get the ability. If we sacrifice it for an ability, ooh, we get it. The cool part about Nightblade is we're banking treasures or clues or maps. Ones that we have to sacrifice to use their effect, well, we're still getting this to go off. Pitiless Plunderer can replace all of our creatures that die with treasures, which work really well with those abilities. But we also have things like Fanatical Offering or Deadly Dispute, which allow us to sack an artifact or a creature to draw a couple cards and make another token to get us more access to more cards out of our deck, get us extra value on board, and just keep us pushing forward. And then, of course, Bash and Remembrance, one of the most popular Aristocrat effects. Whenever a creature we control dies, each opponent loses 1 and we gain 1. So again, we're just pairing these token making effects for our opponents or us with these aristocratic type effects. And again, we really like Kambal's ability because we're going to keep pushing it forward and forward. Well, I've said before on the show, and I'll say it again, no deck's ever done. This is my version 1.0 of the deck, and there was a few cards that didn't make it that I really wanted to make it, and these were 3. O'Hare Talk is mainly took out of the deck because of its price at the moment. I have Mondrak in the deck, and I had really thought about Anointing Procession too, but the problem with some of these doublers are they're getting up to $60, and I would much rather use the $60 for maybe a little bit of draw support or some better removal than a doubler or a tripler, especially because Kambal only triggers once whenever a group of tokens are created. We're not playing enough of the Aristocrat's payoffs to make making triple or that worth it, but O'Hare Talk could be a way to improve the deck. The one of these 3 that I am the most intrigued to put back in is Yawgmoth, because when you pay a life sack creature, put a -1/-1 counter up to 1 target creature and draw a card. This, as long as you have any Aristocrats payoff online, is going to negate that life that you paid, get it back to you, and get the benefit. And Yawgmoth can just start taking out the things you really want. The only reason it got pulled was because it was very tough to find a good cross section of cards. I wanted to kind of wanted to go with the pre-con philosophy where I try to hit as many routes as I can versus sticking to one, because I think there's so many ways to take Kambal. And Afterlife Insurance is a card I really like. All creatures we control gain Afterlife 1 until end of turn, draw a card. There's 2 ways to do this in response to a board wipe, just to refill your board with creatures, or attack with a bunch of 1/1s and give them Afterlife, so if they get chump blocked, cool, you get tokens back for them. But let's get into our playtest. Starting off with Four-lander here, which is of course always great in Orzhov colors. Always great in Orzhov colors. We have enough for Kambal on 3. I really love the idea of Charismatic Conqueror on 2. Right, get that down. Our opponents now have to start making those decisions. I'm not going to simulate anything on the Charismatic Conqueror because we never exactly know what we're going to get. But here we get down Kambal, get it rocking. get it ready to go. I like the idea of the Hunted Horror here and maybe the Slaughter Specialist. Well, I guess we only get one of them per turn, right? We don't want to do it to us. So I probably do the Horror first. Again, that would make us 2/3/3 Centaurs, because remember, our opponents make them, and then we make them. That would drain everybody, and we gain one. And then I'd probably throw that Blind. Well, we don't want to throw the Blind Obedience down, because that kind of interacts with Charismatic Conqueror, doesn't it? We could over-encumbered somebody. But I think I might as well keep it up here. I think we'll just end up losing value out if we do something. Turn 5 here. Master of Ceremonies is pretty fun. Gives us a trigger that I return. But here I probably just Slaughter Specialist. And we're going to get 3 1/1 humans. Because whenever it says whenever one or more under your opponent's control, which I believe would mean I make all 3 of them. If I don't, I apologize, but I'm assuming I do. If I don't, it's just 1. But at either rate, going a little bit wider, trigger there. And I think this is a point where we just start getting them in combat, maybe trying to bait some of the Slaughter Specialists getting bigger, and just look for a way to kind of aristocrat-y the game forward. You know what I mean? I think that would be our point there. And again, in this scenario, we do still have the Master Cruelties to make us some tokens. We have the Over Encumbered to make a token. We still have other ways to make tokens, but again, we're just trying to look for that next great thing to keep the party going. Well, let's get into playtest 2, starting off with a 3-lander with a Dark Ritual, which is pretty cool. No way to get Kambal down turn 1 with the Dark Ritual, because we would need the white as well. But we could do this and get Kambal down, or we could do that and get like Baron down. It doesn't do us any better the next turn when we just hard cast Kambal, but it could get Baron out early, which I guess I'm not opposed to, because then turn 3 we could we actually could Oketra's Monument here. This would make Kambal 1 cheaper and could get us more tokens. Because then we Kambal here for just 2. On cast, we make a 1/1 warrior, right? And then Bertram goes off and actually makes us a 1/1 or a black vampire rogue. Unfortunately, neither of them were on the battlefield when Kambal was on the battlefield, but that's okay. This at least gets us started. And now we have 2 mana up for Fateful or Bovine, again, to knock something out of one of our opponents and give them a token. We also could sack one of these with Bertram to draw cards. So what I would probably do is go through my opponent's turns. If there's something I really want to take out, use one of these to get the token. Otherwise, just sack the warrior with Bertram and draw a card. Because again, we still want to get the card draw going, get things into our hand. All right, well, here we could do the Hunted Horror kind of play like we saw last playtest. Get the 2 Centaurs. This is going to make Kambal go off. Then I would get that Idol of Oblivion down and just tap it to draw a card. Then we can get that Soaring down with our last mana. Now we're set up for the next turn. Hunted Horror would have also gotten us a warrior. So that's pretty great. That would have been another Kambal trigger. So now we're, at 2 or 3 so far from Kambal. And then now, obviously that removal was great to hold up, if we can, because we can get things out of it that way. But Rootborn defenses now to just basically protect our board and give our creatures indestructible. Here I might just take a big swing, see if we can bait somebody into the Rootborn or bait somebody into these here, right? We ideally want to make a token. I'm realizing last turn we would have got another Vampire Rogue because of us making the token, right? I kind of like the Rootborn. We could always take a stab at sacking the Vampire Rogue we got last turn to draw a card with Bertram, and that gets us into Gisa, which is pretty darn great as well. I think we're a little bit... Let's say we used a black and Soul Ring. We've got 5 left. We don't have enough for Gisa, though, because we needed to use that black. But this can draw us a card with the Oblivion. Maybe we put that combat clicker for done. And then maybe here, of course, the course of a turn, we'll obviously get a token or two with combat. Maybe if people are attacking each other. Remember when that happens, on that we would get a warrior, which would neg everybody for one. If that happens, we get that and the 1/1 from Bertram. And that is two separate triggers, so two separate triggers of Kambal. And as you can see, this is kind of the board state we're searching for and we're trying to make happen. But I'd love to know, what do you think of Kambal down in the comment section below? I think the deck's interesting. I love these Orzhov, token value type decks where you get to just take advantage of a certain way to play the game and have some fun. So I'd love to hear what you think of it down in the comment section below, and we'll catch you guys next time.